The lake was frozen, still as glass, reflecting a sky heavy with winter's first snow. A lone German shepherd stood silently by the shore, his breath forming small clouds in the crisp air, eyes fixed intently on something beneath the ice. Before we find out what he saw, take a brief moment to tell us, where are you listening from right now? We'd love to see how far this touching tale reaches. Cooper stood motionless by the edge of the icy lake, his dark ears sharply erect, his amber eyes locked onto the fragile layer of ice that stretched before him. His sleek, black and tan fur bristled slightly, catching tiny snowflakes that fell gently from the slate-gray sky. He was a magnificent German shepherd, strong and agile, with a calm yet protective demeanor cultivated through years of companionship with his owner, Ben Hawkins, a retired police officer known throughout the quiet Vermont town of Maplewood for his kindness and bravery. A faint, muffled sound drifted up through the crystalline ice, stirring a deep instinct within Cooper. It was weak and high-pitched, barely audible above the whispering wind, but it was unmistakably a desperate plea for help. Cooper lowered his head cautiously, sniffing the cold surface. His breath created small puffs of vapor in the chill air as he carefully placed one large paw forward, testing the strength of the frozen lake. Somewhere beneath the glassy surface, trapped in the frigid darkness, something was struggling to survive. Cooper felt the urgency of the momenta life was at stake, vulnerable and helpless, waiting for someone strong enough to save it. His heart beat quicker, not from fear, but from determination. Without hesitation, he took another cautious step forward, his paw pads tingling from the biting cold beneath. Slowly and methodically, Cooper inched further onto the ice, his senses alert to every subtle crack or shifting beneath him. As he drew nearer to the source of the pitiful sound, his keen eyes finally spotted a tiny patch of white fur pressed against the underside of the translucent ice. His heart sank at the sight. A small kitten, pure white with pale blue eyes wide with fear, had somehow slipped through a narrow opening and become trapped beneath the surface, clawing desperately at the ice above. Cooper's mind raced as he assessed the danger, instinctively understanding the fragility of the ice. Yet his courage outweighed his caution. He raised a sturdy paw, gently tapping at the spot above the kitten, hoping to break through just enough without causing the entire surface to collapse. The ice cracked slightly under his careful movements, sending thin, spider-like lines across the frozen surface. The kitten, sensing its savior above, mewed weakly, its strength nearly exhausted. Gathering all his focus, Cooper gave one firm, precise blow with his paw, breaking a small hole just large enough for a tiny creature to emerge. Immediately, freezing water splashed upward, soaking his fur. Ignoring the numbing cold, Cooper reached into the frigid water with his snout, carefully gripping the scruff of the kitten's neck in his powerful jaws. He lifted the kitten out, gently placing the shivering bundle onto the snow-covered shore. The kitten collapsed, breathing shallowly, its small body trembling violently. Cooper curled around the fragile creature instinctively, offering the warmth of his thick fur. He nudged the kitten gently, licking its icy fur in an attempt to revive it. Slowly, the kitten stirred, its pale eyes blinking open weakly as it nestled deeper into Cooper's protective embrace. As dusk descended over the lake, the wind picked up, swirling snowflakes and small eddies around the unlikely pair. Cooper knew he needed to take the kitten to safety, back home to Ben. Carefully, he rose, nudging the tiny kitten forward, encouraging it to follow him toward the warm lights flickering in the distant farmhouse windows. Each step Cooper took was deliberate, pausing frequently to ensure the kitten was still with him. The little feline stumbled and shivered, its strength waning. Without hesitation, Cooper gently lifted the kitten by the scruff once more, carrying it carefully through the snow-covered fields toward home. The evening air was sharp and unforgiving, yet Cooper pressed onward, driven by the powerful bond forged in that moment of crisis. Approaching the welcoming warmth of the farmhouse, Cooper heard Ben's voice calling softly from the porch, concern evident in his tone. Emerging from the shadows of the snow-covered yard, Cooper appeared, his precious cargo safely in tow. Ben's eyes widened in astonishment and compassion as he rushed forward, immediately understanding what his faithful companion had accomplished. "You've done well, Cooper," Ben murmured softly, taking the trembling kitten into his hands, feeling the fragile heartbeat beneath his fingertips. Cooper gazed up at his owner, his eyes reflecting pride, exhaustion, and an unspoken plea for help. The journey had only just begun, but together they had already overcome the impossible. Inside the cozy farmhouse kitchen, Ben Hawkins gently wrapped the shivering white kitten in a soft, warm towel, carefully drying her fur. Her tiny body trembled, delicate and fragile beneath his large, gentle hands. Ben, a sturdy man in his early 60s, wore deep lines on his face earned from years of police work, yet his soft blue eyes held a kindness that spoke of a gentle soul beneath his tough exterior. The kitten, whom Ben had lovingly named Snowball due to her pristine white coat, peered up at him, her pale blue eyes reflecting both vulnerability and gratitude. Nearby, Cooper watched attentively, his amber eyes never leaving Snowball's tiny form. Even indoors, his posture was vigilant, ears perked, expression calm yet deeply protective. He had immediately adopted the role of guardian to the fragile creature he had rescued, feeling an unfamiliar yet powerful sense of responsibility. It was clear he was determined to keep her safe, his loyalty unwavering. The farmhouse had always been a home tailored for dogs, spacious and sturdy, filled with well-loved dog beds, toys, and evidence of Cooper's joyful, bustling presence. Cooper had been Ben's sole companion since he retired, and their routines revolved around each other. Ben knew introducing a cat, especially such a vulnerable kitten, could complicate things. Despite his affection for animals, he wasn't sure how Snowball would fit into their peaceful but dog-centered life. Over the following days, the presence of Snowball brought subtle but noticeable changes. Cooper spent his nights curled protectively around her, sharing his warmth, gently nudging her awake whenever nightmares made her whimper. Their bond was growing strong and deep, yet Ben noticed tensions in the daily routines he and Cooper had cherished. Simple things like feeding or playtime became complicated, as Cooper's attention was always split, his instincts driving him to constantly check on Snowball's well-being. Ben felt torn, his heart aching with the heavy weight of responsibility. He adored the little kitten, admired her resilience, and deeply respected Cooper's unwavering loyalty to her. However, his pragmatic side insisted that Snowball would need a home more suitable for Hera family, familiar with cats, one that could give her undivided attention and a nurturing environment. Cooper seemed to sense Ben's internal struggle, becoming increasingly protective of Snowball, always positioned between her and any possible threat, even if that threat existed only in Ben's troubled mind. One chilly afternoon, Ben sat quietly in his worn leather armchair by the fireplace, deep in contemplation. The room was filled with comforting warmth, the logs crackling softly, casting dancing shadows across the walls. Snowball lay asleep in Cooper's large bed, her tiny paws twitching gently, perhaps chasing dreams. Cooper lay nearby, his large frame relaxed but watchful, eyes drifting between Snowball and his beloved owner. With a heavy sigh, Ben finally spoke, his voice gentle yet burdened. "Cooper, we might have to let her go. Snowball needs a home that's right for her, with people who truly understand cats." Cooper lifted his head sharply, ears pricked forward, eyes filled with an unmistakable sadness. Ben's heart tightened at the sight. Knowing the profound bond they'd forged was not something easily broken. Cooper rose slowly, padding over to Snowball's sleeping form and gently laying his head beside her, eyes closing momentarily in quiet acceptance, yet expressing a deep wish to remain with her. Watching them, Ben felt a wave of emotion wash over him, understanding the depth of the companionship that had formed. The decision ahead would not be easy, not just for himself, but for the loyal companion who had already made his choice clear. Ben knew he owed it to Cooper to weigh carefully, to not rush into a decision driven purely by practicality. Later that night, Ben lay awake in his bed, thoughts swirling. The farmhouse was quiet, filled only with the gentle breathing of Cooper and Snowball nestled together in the other room. Ben listened carefully, feeling the steady rhythm of their breathing as a comforting lullaby. He realized he could not rush this decision. Whatever happened next had to honor the bond forged between these two unlikely friends. As dawn approached, Ben knew what he needed to do. He would take the time to find a home that didn't separate the hearts that had so deeply intertwined. Cooper had made his loyalty clear, and Ben was determined to respect it, honoring the bravery and kindness his beloved dog had shown from the beginning. Together, they would find a way, even if the path forward was uncertain. Cooper's courage and Snowball's quiet strength had already shown him that some bonds were too powerful to break, and that the truest home was one where love, loyalty, and understanding could flourish even in the most unexpected of friendships. As snow gently blanketed the fields around Ben's farmhouse, Cooper lay awake, quietly alert beside Snowball, feeling a growing unease. Though the warmth of their shared bed offered temporary comfort, the looming sense of uncertainty gnawed at him relentlessly. Cooper knew, in the deep, instinctive way animals always did, that change was near. He couldn't bear the thought of losing the delicate, white kitten he had risked everything to save, the friend who had filled an unexpected emptiness inside his loyal heart. That evening, when Ben briefly stepped out to visit neighbors, Cooper seized the moment. Gently nudging Snowball awake with his nose, he guided her quietly to the back door. Snowball, still small and fragile, but trusting completely in Cooper's protective presence, stumbled sleepily beside him. Cooper paused briefly, ears perked, checking for any signs of Ben's return before leading the way out into the frigid, moonlit night. The wind immediately bit at their fur, a harsh reminder of winter's unrelenting grip. Cooper stayed close beside Snowball, using his larger frame to shield her from the worst of the cold. His senses remained keenly alert, ears swiveling to catch the slightest hint of danger or opportunity. The vast, snow-covered landscape spread endlessly before them, each step plunging them deeper into the unknown. Hours passed slowly, painfully. Snowball's tiny paws grew numb, and her strength waned considerably. Each step became a monumental effort, and soon she stumbled, collapsing gently onto the snow. Cooper immediately turned back, anxiety flooding his eyes. Tenderly, he nudged her again, his warm breath gently brushing her face. Snowball mewed weakly, trying bravely to rise once more, driven only by trust in her loyal protector. Seeing her distress, Cooper lay beside her in the snow, curling his body around her trembling form. He shielded her as best he could from the bitter wind, his body heat flowing slowly to her, warming her just enough to ease her shaking. They lay quietly beneath the endless, star-filled sky, a fragile, unlikely pair bound together by trust and mutual survival. The harsh conditions tested them both. Cooper knew they couldn't remain here. They had to find shelter quickly. Gathering his strength and courage, he gently lifted Snowball by the scruff, carefully carrying her to a grove of tall evergreens nearby, where dense branches formed a natural barrier against the wind. He placed her carefully beneath a large tree, then immediately set off in search of food. The night's silence seemed eternal as Cooper prowled through the snow-covered woods, hunger gnawing sharply at his stomach. After patient hunting, he managed to catch a small rabbit, swiftly ending its life and carrying it back to Snowball. Despite his own painful hunger, Cooper offered the food first to Snowball, nudging it gently toward her. She ate slowly, her small body barely strong enough to accept nourishment. Days continued in this pattern, an arduous routine of traveling, searching for food, and constant sacrifice. Snowball weakened further, her delicate white fur now dirty and tangled, her blue eyes heavy with exhaustion. Cooper, too, felt the strain. His once glossy coat had dulled, his ribs beginning to show through from constant hunger. Yet his resolve never faltered. His love and loyalty sustained him, driving him forward even through exhaustion and discomfort. One bitterly cold night, as heavy snow fell relentlessly around them, Cooper led Snowball toward the distant lights of another small village. His paws cracked painfully from the cold, his breathing heavy with fatigue. Snowball trailed weakly, stumbling frequently, her fragile mews becoming fewer and softer. Cooper frequently paused, patiently waiting for her to regain her strength, always gently encouraging her forward. Eventually, he sensed Snowball could no longer continue. Her tiny form collapsed into the deepening snow, her breathing shallow, body trembling violently. Cooper's heart broke seeing her suffering. Without hesitation, he lifted her carefully once more, carrying her slowly toward a barn he spotted through the swirling snowflakes. Warm golden lights promised shelter, safety, and perhaps a new hope. Approaching cautiously, Cooper placed Snowball gently into a mound of hay, immediately curling around her, offering his warmth. Snowball's tiny body nestled close, her breathing easing slightly in the shelter. For the first time in days, Cooper allowed himself a brief moment of rest, aware their journey was far from over, yet hopeful they had found a temporary sanctuary. Together they rested, bonded by hardship, courage, and love. Despite the harshness they'd endured, Cooper knew he'd willingly face any hardship if it meant protecting the small companion who had become such a vital part of his heart. Nightfall brought with it an icy silence that settled heavily upon the old barn. Cooper lay curled protectively around Snowball, his keen eyes focused on the shadows that danced menacingly across the hay-strewn floor. Snowball slept fitfully, her breath shallow, her small body shivering occasionally despite Cooper's warmth. He gently licked her head, comforting her as best as he could, though he knew their sanctuary would not shelter them for long. As the wind began to howl outside, its intensity grew rapidly into a fierce snowstorm, roaring through the trees and battering against the barn's weathered walls. Cooper raised his head sharply, his ears twitching anxiously, sensing the rising danger beyond their temporary shelter. The snowstorm grew louder, more aggressive, transforming the peaceful countryside into a wild, threatening landscape. Unable to rest, Cooper gently nudged Snowball awake, knowing they needed to move before the storm trapped them. Her pale blue eyes opened slowly, exhaustion evident in her fragile gaze, yet she trusted him implicitly, struggling to her feet. Cooper guided her carefully through the creaking barn door and out into the swirling blizzard, his strong body immediately shielding her from the brutal gusts of snow and ice. Visibility quickly vanished beneath the relentless fury of the storm, and Cooper soon realized they had wandered deeper into an unfamiliar part of the woods. Each step became more difficult as snow piled higher, their paws sinking into the freezing drifts. Snowball stumbled frequently, her frail limbs barely able to support her. Cooper continuously encouraged her, pausing often to help her regain her footing, his loyalty unwavering despite his own growing exhaustion. Suddenly, from within the dense, storm-blinded trees, a low, menacing growl pierced the shrieking wind. Cooper froze instantly, muscles tensed, ears flattened against his head, instinctively positioning himself between Snowball and the unseen threat. Slowly emerging from the shadows appeared a large, wild coyote, its lean, gray body hunched low, amber eyes glittering hungrily as it sized up its prey. Cooper felt his heart quicken, knowing there was no escape from this confrontation. Snowball trembled behind him, her frightened cries tearing at his heart. He knew there was no choice but to stand his ground and defend her, no matter the cost. Cooper let out a deep, authoritative growl, bracing himself for the impending clash. The coyote lunged forward aggressively, snapping fiercely at Cooper's throat. Cooper swiftly dodged, countering with powerful snaps and lunges of his own, driving the attacker back repeatedly. Snow swirled around them in a furious dance as they fought, Cooper's strength slowly waning under relentless assault. He received several painful bites, each wound burning deeply, but he refused to yield or retreat. His protective instinct surged powerfully, fueled by an unbreakable bond to the small, frightened companion behind him. With one final, desperate burst of strength, Cooper drove forward, his powerful jaws clamping firmly onto the coyote's shoulder, forcing it to yelp sharply and retreat into the shadows. As the attacker vanished, Cooper staggered slightly, breathing heavily, his body trembling with exhaustion and pain. He glanced back anxiously at Snowball, seeing her terrified but unharmed. Relief flooded through him, restoring his resolve. Despite his wounds, he knew they could not rest yet. Cooper gathered his remaining strength, gently nudging Snowball to move forward once more, leading her step by slow step toward the distant glow of lights marking the edge of the nearby town. The journey was grueling, with Cooper pausing frequently, struggling against the agony in his injured limbs. Snowball clung desperately to him, drawing courage from his steadfast presence. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they reached the outskirts of town, Cooper collapsing exhausted beneath the shelter of a street lamp, its warm yellow glow illuminating the snow-covered road around them. Snowball curled close beside him, gently licking his wounds, her tiny purrs offering comfort and gratitude. Cooper, though injured and utterly spent, felt a deep sense of fulfillment. He had done what he had set out to do, protected the vulnerable life entrusted to him, even at great personal cost. As they lay beneath the quiet illumination, Cooper felt reassured. Whatever came next, they had faced it together, stronger for the trials endured, and the bond that now connected their souls forever. The first rays of dawn crept gently over the quiet Vermont town, spreading soft, golden warmth across the snow-covered streets. Beneath a flickering street lamp, Cooper lay motionless, breathing shallowly, his body aching deeply from the fierce struggles of the night. Beside him, Snowball pressed close, her tiny form offering comfort and warmth. Her small paws softly kneaded his fur, reassuring him that she was there, safe, grateful. Meanwhile, at the farmhouse, Ben Hawkins had spent a sleepless night consumed by worry, his rugged face lined with anxiety. At sunrise, he called upon his friend, Sheriff Tom Reynolds, a steady, broad-shouldered man known for his compassion and reliability. Together, they swiftly gathered a small search team, determined to find the missing companions before another storm set in. Guided by urgency and hope, they combed through fields and forest trails, calling Cooper's name desperately into the crisp winter air. It was Ben himself who finally spotted the gentle rise and fall of Cooper's battered body beneath the street lamp. His heart surged with relief and gratitude as he rushed forward, snow crunching underfoot. Cooper lifted his weary head slightly, recognition and relief flickering in his tired amber eyes. "Oh, Cooper," Ben whispered softly, kneeling beside his loyal companion. His rough hands gently touched Cooper's wounded body, carefully inspecting the injuries, his heart tightening at the sight. Yet it was Snowball's small white form cuddled close to Cooper that caught him off guard, stirring unexpected tears in his eyes. The bond that had formed between them was profound, evident in the way Cooper had shielded Snowball even in his weakest moments. The rescue team quickly wrapped both animals in warm blankets, tenderly lifting them into Sheriff Reynolds' truck. Ben sat beside Cooper during the ride, his fingers gently stroking the dog's fur, soothing him. At the veterinary clinic, Dr. Emily Carter, a caring woman in her 40s with compassionate green eyes, swiftly attended to Cooper's wounds. Snowball, though exhausted, remained steadfastly close, her presence seemingly giving Cooper the strength to endure. Throughout Cooper's recovery, Snowball rarely left his side. Her tiny frame curled gently against him as they rested, her rhythmic purring offering comfort and healing. Ben watched quietly, profoundly moved by the depth of their friendship, an unlikely connection that had defied species boundaries and reminded everyone involved of the limitless power of compassion. Days passed, and Cooper gradually regained his strength. His wounds healed, though scars remained, permanent testaments to his bravery and loyalty. Ben reflected deeply on the extraordinary bond he had witnessed, realizing his initial hesitation about keeping Snowball had been misguided. Watching Cooper and Snowball, he saw clearly that their friendship had become inseparable, their lives forever intertwined by loyalty, courage, and mutual care. One tranquil evening, Ben sat quietly by the fireplace, Cooper resting comfortably at his feet, Snowball nestled peacefully beside him. The farmhouse felt warmer, more complete with Snowball's quiet presence. Ben reached down gently, stroking Cooper's head affectionately. "You taught me something important, Cooper," he murmured softly. "You showed me that love has no boundaries, no conditions. You protected her even when it nearly cost you everything. I'm proud of you, my friend." Cooper's eyes met Ben's, deep understanding passing silently between them. Beside Cooper, Snowball stretched gently, her blue eyes bright, contentment radiating from her delicate form. Ben knew then he could never separate them. Snowball was home, right where she belonged, loved and protected by the steadfast German shepherd who had risked everything to save her. From that day forward, the farmhouse became a true sanctuary, filled with warmth and understanding, laughter and companionship. Cooper and Snowball's friendship inspired the small community, a powerful example of unconditional love and devotion that touched many hearts. Visitors often stopped by, eager to meet the courageous German Shepherd and his gentle feline friend, the unlikely pair whose incredible bond had changed so many lives. Years later, as Cooper grew older and Snowball matured into a graceful, affectionate cat, their bond remained unshakable. They spent peaceful days together, basking in sunlight, a testament to the extraordinary power of friendship forged through adversity and sacrifice. Ben knew their journey had taught him something irreplaceable, that true love was not defined by species, age, or circumstance, but by the quiet, unwavering devotion that filled each shared moment. In the gentle twilight of their lives, Cooper and Snowball were inseparable, reminding everyone who met them that genuine love has the power to overcome any boundary, heal any wound, and endure forever within hearts touched by compassion. Sometimes, life's greatest lessons come from the smallest hearts, reminding us that true love knows no boundaries, loyalty needs no words, and genuine sacrifice asks for nothing in return. As Cooper and Snowball taught us, friendship can blossom even in the harshest winters. If this story touched your heart, please stay with us by subscribing, because more heartwarming journeys are waiting to unfold.